I wanted to begin our discussion period of the day talking about self and absence of self. I do return to this topic with regularity because it's a very important topic for the practice territory of awakening. In both the Theravada model, which is a four-stage awakening model, as well as the Zen model, which is a three-stage model, there is the expectation that one will be experiencing what's called no self. And to understand no self, we'll talk a little bit about what is the self, how the self gets established. And just to say, there are lots of theories, lots of psychological theories on how the self is established or formed, maintained, all that. And I'm just going to present what has made the most sense to me in terms of the structuring of the self and then the orienting to absence of self, what that looks like and means. So as a real basic understanding of self-identity, we could say the self is who we take ourselves to be. So looking at things like the feedback we receive in our lifetime, particularly when we're young. So among our birth family and early schooling, if we were the smart one, the athletic one, the funny one, and we received a lot of feedback about that particular role or identity, that would begin to land with us. We would know that I'm this one, I'm the athletic one, I'm the smart one, I'm whatever. And so that begins filling in our identity. And then we also have a sense of personal inferiority. People begin as children, as infants. We're born into what Margaret Mahler called the dual unity, the oneness with the absolute, particularly with presence. And yet the baby isn't aware of it in the same way that if we were to have an awakening experience and have a unity component to that awakening, there would be that undivided oneness with presence we would experience. But because we have lived with the belief that we are an individual separate self, this would be a fairly big shift. So this would be part of the awakening, is awakening to that unity that's always present. So the different ways we understand ourselves, again, that the infant at some point realizes that their survival depends upon bonding as much as possible with the caregivers. And we all conclude this means turning away from the presence of the absolute, the unity. And when we do turn away, virtually all of us make a story about our own failure, our worthlessness, our valuelessness. It's as though we all conclude the reason that we left the unity with presence is because something in us was bad, broken, unlovable, somehow damaged. And we take this wounding, what I call the core wound, we take it as a completely unfixable truth. I am broken at my core is the way most people operate. And then they try to behave in ways to convince themselves and others that they're not worthless, they're not valueless, they're not their core wound. They really are something special. And of course, each of us is profoundly special. We're unique expressions of the absolute. There's never been a person like you, nor will there be. So to feel special, to feel unique is a truth. But we have to arrive at that truth in a realization. And so part of this is looking at the sense of self. And as we do, as we work it, we begin to deconstruct our allegiance to it. The Theravadan practices, the samatha practices, such as the breath awareness jhana practice, the heart practices called the Brahma Viharas, and other practices are intended to slowly deconstruct the solidity of the conceptual me. And little by little, we have experiences doing the samatha practices. We have experiences of impermanence, of the conditioned world having a birth and death. And that's not necessarily just referring to people, but to all qualities or functions in the conditioned world are subject to elimination, to their own form of death. And so as we do these practices, and then the Zen practices doing as we did today, Shikantaza also loosens us from the allegiance to the self. We're opening to the vastness. We're opening to the absolute. Awareness and consciousness can enter deeply into the absolute and be steeping in the absolute's qualities and functions. Today we're going to be focusing on the unmanifest absolute, which is characterized visually as black, a rich dark blackness. It has other qualities, absence or emptiness, as that's traditionally called. And it's an absence of identity. So none of that is present in the absolute. There's no identity there. There's also peace and profound stillness in the unmanifest absolute. And as we journey deeper into the darkness, into the absence, the lack, the nothingness, the void, we encounter peace and stillness. And these become our vehicle to continue deepening into the absolute. And if we continue on this trajectory into the unmanifest absolute, one of the experiences we can encounter is cessation. Cessation is the ceasing of all materiality and mentality. So it's the shutting down of everything. Our consciousness and our awareness stop. It's a lights out experience. The closest experience we have to it is a dreamless sleep. If there's any mental activity, if there's any thought, if there's any pictures, if there's any dreams, if there's any identity, we're not fully in cessation. A few months back, I was included with a few other dedicated, perhaps senior practitioners in a brain study at Harvard. We were asked to do the 8 jhanas and enter cessation while hooked up to machines, including the most powerful MRI they have these days. And they released their studies recently, they were able to map not only the jhanas, but cessation in our brains. They could see the I suppose, familiar or the pattern that many of us were showing. And part of what they showed in that was the normal part of the brain that lights up to support a self was dialed down, if not completely quiet. So the sense of self was quieted to that point, even in the brain workings. So that was quite interesting to see that there is physiological changes that happen as we go deeply into the unmanifest absolute. So just know this is all real. This is all happening. This is all impacting your consciousness. Let me pause here and see if there's any questions. Typically with cessation, cessation isn't too prone to spontaneously happening. It does in meditation, but like in regular life, it's rare when it just happens to someone. So the usual entry points Like, for example, the study I was in, everybody else in the study was using Vipassana, was using the stages of insight of Vipassana to work their way up to cessation. And I was doing the other approach, which was using the samatha, using the jhana practice to access and open to cessation. So there's different ways one can approach it. And also people have experienced cessation through the guided meditations I do, like we just did. And one of the important aspects of cessation is it depends on the duration of the cessation, how impactful it is. It seems to be that 30 minutes in cessation is a minimum for it to be enough of a shift of the personality, at least for me, to confirm it as stream entry. So it's possible you're experiencing cessation. It's also possible you're experiencing something called sinking mind, where the concentration is higher than the energy, and we can be in a space that feels very cozy, very warm, very dark, like we're snuggled in the most comfortable blanket ever. And there's really no thought, there's nothing difficult happening. But the one way we tell sinking mind is that it's very flat energetically, it's very dull. And cessation, we don't know what cessation feels like because we have no awareness or consciousness when that's present. We only know it after cessation. And it's sort of like a waking up experience where we feel incredibly refreshed, as though we've had a really long, excellent nap. And there's just a kind of awakeness with a realization that something significant has happened. Something's changed in a significant way or big way in me. And so part of the journey afterwards is the unpacking of that. What's changed? So I can't really say. I would lean towards sleep or sinking mind. That's the most typical. But I can't rule out cessation because it does happen spontaneously, particularly if you're doing one of the guided meditations I do. Those seem to be very fruitful. So long answer. Yeah, the body, I think it's called body dysmorphia, but basically, normally our perception of our body when we're at our sharpest intellectually, I can say I'm oriented here in time. I've got this physicality. I can feel clothing and furniture and building around me. And so that's how we have some identity. And what's happening in the Shikantaza is that because we're orienting to the atmosphere, the inner and outer atmospheres, rather than the body itself, the concept of the body, the repetitive concept of our physicality softens. And so we can not only feel as though parts of our body are missing, meaning my head's gone, my upper body's gone, we also can feel like a leg is, in this direction, 3 meters or 9 feet, or you can go in the other direction the same distance. So that happens, but also the sense of how we're sitting. We can feel like we're really leaning back or leaning forward, which we can do, of course, and sometimes it's simply perception, because that body boundary is softening, that inner gyroscope is also softening, and it's misperceiving what's happening. So it isn't uncommon to have that feeling, and that is part of the body boundary collapsing typically. So I would view it that way if I were you, and just let it happen. And the light, same thing. There's I don't know if you're a visual meditator or not, if you commonly see things in your meditation or not. But if you are, then seeing things like colors is not uncommon. If you're not, this could be that skill set is activating, and you're starting to see colors, because there can be colors absolutely in the absolute, and they correspond to various things, and there's a whole lot of learning one can do in that territory. Yeah, that's fine. We don't need the whole body boundary disappear or all sense of our body. I mean, in cessation, that would be gone. We would have no perception at all. But in anything else we're doing, we absolutely could have a perception of the pillow or feel the floor against the bottoms of our feet, for example. But we don't emphasize that. We don't make that a priority. It's just we include it in the wholeness of our perception. Yeah, you can look on my website, awakenedharma.org, and we've got it posted on there. They have a bunch of information. What I was able to a little bit understand was that they did a kind of synopsis in English without all the jargon, and then they went into all the jargon of what what they used and what all that stuff. So and that made no sense to me at all. I'm not a medical or science person, so maybe you can make some sense out of it. Sure. Yeah, but I think the study was really important because, again, mapping it and seeing that these things do make a change in our brains that can be seen and measured using the most modern equipment is really, really exciting, because I know I have students tell me a lot of teachers won't talk about things like awakening or nirvana or even cessation. One student told me that his teacher said that cessation is something you worry about in the next lifetime. You don't need to worry about it now. So I think bringing this into a kind of reality is going to be really useful. Yeah, I think it's not important what the breath does. Normally the breath does get quieter, softer. That's typical. So the main thing is not to do anything with the breath. Like when we're moving through the chakras, if possible, if we can have the sensation of breathing into the chakra, it helps bring energy and awareness. So it adds a kind of more aliveness to the chakra. So our engagement is usually a little deeper. But I would just say don't worry about the breath. Just stay with the meditation or stay with where we're practicing and let the breath just take care of itself.